Kim received some correspondence from Advantage Ontario, so it's regarding reducing further impacts to long-term care from COVID-19. So to amend the agenda, we have moving that Councillor Woodbury and Councillor Clumpus.
Okay, I have that. Thank you. So to move on for agenda, Jennifer, you want to introduce our guests?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I am really pleased to invite the leadership from the County of Simcoe to our Zoom meeting. We unfortunately weren't able to get there in person, but we do the next best thing, and we're all learning how to do all things virtual these days. So I am really pleased to introduce Jane Sinclair, General Manager of Health and Emergency Services. There she's waved. And Michelle Pause, is that? Yay, good. So Michelle, who's the Director of Senior Services, and they are going to take us on a virtual tour, do a presentation, and then answer some questions. So I'll hand it over.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jane.
Thanks very much. This is a real pleasure this morning to provide a presentation on our largest campus, Georgian Village. And I'm sorry that we can't take you on a real tour right now, but hold that thought, post-COVID, and it will end. We'd love to have you. So hopefully at some point we can show you in person Georgian Village. So we thought, and as Jennifer mentioned, I'm here with Michelle Pose, who gave you the thumbs up, who is our Director of Senior Services. So she manages the campus, all the seniors housing and services at Georgian Village, and we have a number of other housing and services at a couple of other locations. So she has a lot of information on our programs and services. And we thought that we would start just to kind of set the context with the video, a short video clip. I think it's about 8 minutes long, that just gives you an overview of the campus, and then you can actually see the different components. So if I turn that back to Jennifer, are you able to start us off with the video?
Yep, Tara or Rob, one of our IT experts.
How do we define Georgian Village for those looking in? I would use words like amazing, caring, community, family, and home. The creation of Georgian Village is about a vision that considers a whole new way of looking after seniors in our communities. For County Council for their vision and for their incredible support of our seniors throughout this region. The foresight and the commitment has brought this vision to life. Georgian Village fosters an aging-in-place concept with a strong community environment. By offering a variety of housing options and services, Georgian Village will help our seniors find the care that they need for whatever stage of life that they are in. This ensures that as people age, they will continue to be surrounded by family and friends without the worry of being uprooted from their home as their needs change. One of the fundamental elements that makes Georgian Village so special is our amazing staff and volunteers. Our continuum of care model will allow residents to stay close to their home, family, and caregivers as they age.
We offer a broad continuum of housing options and care. Our 20.7-acre site enables you to age in place, knowing you can stay within this fully serviced and supportive community as your needs change. Our housing solutions span a wide spectrum of socioeconomic requirements and housing preferences. We offer life-lease garden homes and apartment suites that can be purchased or leased. Retirement home units, affordable housing apartments, full care, long-term care homes. Georgian Village has something for everyone. All your needs, from housing to long-term care to health care to social activities and healthy lifestyle promotion, can be met under one safe and secure roof. As a resident of Georgian Village, you are surrounded by supportive staff and exceptional professional caregivers. We embrace and nurture our aging population. We provide innovative care solutions and lead the way in demonstrating a totally different model for seniors housing and services. Adult day programming, services for residents and those in the larger community. VON SMART program, respite care offered with long-term care and our retirement living facility. Convalescent care, home care services. We offer additional support to residents with dementia and other mental health needs through a specialized behavioral support team. This team works closely with our residents, their families, and staff to ensure they are provided compassionate and individualized care for their unique requirements. Our ability to fit the needs of seniors, from the independent to the most dependent, is unique. Our concept of aging in place ensures that as your needs change, we can support you throughout each stage and transition. Georgian Village is a complete community within a community, bringing a wide range of social and recreational activities right to your doorstep. Our community is safe, inspiring, healthy, and accessible for everyone. The entire campus is surrounded by paved walkways for biking, walking, and scooters. To promote and support your active lifestyle and diverse interests, the Village Center and the grounds contain many activities to stimulate your mind and invigorate your body. Golf greens, shuffleboard and bocce ball courts, fitness center with therapeutic pool and sauna, worship center, conference classroom, library resource center, woodworking shop, greenhouse with horticulture projects. The amenities are endless. If you need a service, you can find it directly on campus. A la carte meal services and housekeeping. Rendezvous Bistro and Village Pub. Offering pub nights and many other social events. Village Clinic, Hearing Aid Center, Salon, Lawn and Garden Maintenance. Social interaction is a key component to mental health and well-being. At Georgian, we have a strong social network in place to ensure that our residents and those in the larger community are not alone or isolated, while respecting your right to privacy. At Georgian Village, you feel a sense of community. Embrace cultural diversity. Are provided with an entire suite of services and amenities to suit your individual needs and lifestyle. Have access to a busy calendar of social events and activities to support your interests. It takes an entire community to build and support Georgian Village. Our partnerships with the larger community and local municipalities are so critical. Our residents get the added benefit and expertise from the many partnerships we have forged. VON SMART program, the Red Cross Meals on Wheels, Georgian College, Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, First Nations, Penetanguishene Public Library, and SIMCOE Cooperative Library, the surrounding community. These are only a few of the partnerships Georgian Village has.
Together, we have created something truly amazing. It will support our residents in achieving better health and a better life for many years to come.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm glad that worked because technology can be a challenge. So thank you so much. If you want to go ahead, if you can put the presentation and we'll talk a little bit more detail about some of the aspects of our village. Wonderful. You did that beautifully. Thank you. So we'll skip to the first slide. And just very quickly, just talk about a bit of background with this project. Georgian Manor was a standalone long-term care home, one of 4 homes owned and operated by the County of Simcoe prior to our redevelopment project in 2013. It was at the time our only Class B facility. The other homes had been redeveloped later on, and we're now considered Class A. So that really started the discussion with our county council in terms of equity, not just in terms of service levels, but the actual physical plant, the building itself. And also at the time, as this continues, we were seeing a huge demand, increased demand for seniors housing, for long-term care beds as well. And another component was sustainability. This was our smallest home, and it cost us the most. As you can see at our peak, the one home alone cost us in our annual tax levy over $1 million, double some of our larger sites. And the other piece was we have a real long history of providing seniors care, and our county councillors are extremely committed to supporting seniors across the region. I think our oldest facility, which I'll talk about at the end, SIMCOEN Manor in Beaton, was originally constructed in 1898. It's about over 120 years old, originally a house of refuge. So we've been in this business a very long time. So that started the discussions. Next slide, please. And so looking at our some of our other locations, we had small campuses. So in one location, we had a long-term care home and a supportive housing complex physically linked, and also an adult day program. And in a second location, we had our long-term care home, an adult day program, and life lease units. And we found connecting seniors housing together on one location really worked well. They were able to access some of the services and amenities from the long-term care home, and it just created a really nice community environment. So from that, we looked at the needs. We went forward, our council approved going forward with an entire campus. So looking at all the various pieces we had in other locations, and then adding some additional housing and services. And as you can see, there's 5 different types of housing and along with our long-term care. And I'll talk a little bit about each of them as we go forward. Next slide, please. So just a quick note, there was a funding component specifically for leads component to our long-term care home. And one of our council directives is to preserve and conserve our environment. So it was a really great fit. So you can see the energy savings, the forecasted energy savings are about $250,000 a year. So the payback was just over 8 years for the additional investment. And as I mentioned, we did receive additional funding for the green components of the project. And you can see, lighting, toilets, HVAC system, some components of design. And I will tell you, we've learned a lot since we opened the doors at Georgian Village, and we've actually upgraded our lighting since. At the time, some of these components were fairly new, and we've seen huge efficiencies since then. So we continue to look at our design to save money. Next slide, please. This just gives you the look and feel of the entire campus. It's in Penetanguishene, which is located on Georgian Bay. And it's a beautiful area. And so we try to reflect the outside inside our campus to really create that home-like environment. Next slide, please. This just gives you, and you saw from the video, you could actually see the buildings, but this gives you an overview. And if you look right in the center of this diagram, you can see the box that reads Georgian Rendezvous, which is really the community center. And that's what the whole campus development really positions itself around. So each of these various housing components, with the exception of the garden homes, are physically linked. So our residents just walk down the hallway to access the core community center. And the Rendezvous it's a French community. It's a high Francophone population. Michelle is my French connection. She's fluent in both English and French. I am not. So we tried to really bring that cultural component into the campus development as well. Next slide, please. And it's on 20.7 acres. Just before we move, you can see kind of the white circle the SIMCOE Circle, we call it. So there is a paved walking, cycling trail that surrounds the entire campus. And as soon as we open the doors, in fact, before we open the doors, we started to see people from the community accessing, riding their bicycles through, going for walks. So it really feels like a community. And on the north side, it's actually connected. We have a crosswalk connects to a park, an adjacent park across the street. And on the other side, it connects to trails that go to the through the broader community. So it was a really nice fit in the larger community. Next slide, please. So the manor itself was 107 beds. It was our smallest home. It cost us the most. We didn't have the same economies of scale. And so there was a lot of impetus around business model behind the project. So we knew there was a huge need for seniors housing and services, but there was also a really strong business case for this development. So on the long-term care side of the equation, we had applied, and we had been applying for beds for a number of years, and we were successful in receiving 36 additional beds. And those additional long-term care beds really took us to the next level. And year one, you'll see, I'll talk a little bit about the finances, but we saved about $500,000, almost $500,000 in a drop in our tax levy for this home in particular, just by having more beds, more income, and being able to spread our administrative costs over a larger home. And I also mentioned there's a couple of other care components. So we have memory care or dementia care units. We have convalescent care, which there's 5 beds dedicated to short stay. So people that are rehabilitating in the hospital that aren't ready to go back into the community, they come here. They can stay for up to 90 days. We have more intensive physiotherapy, et cetera, to get them back on their feet, and then a nice transition back into their home. And then short stay, a couple of short stay beds for families in the community that need caregiver relief. Next slide, please. So Georgian Residences, this is our retirement home. So this is really the next level of care at Georgian Village. And it's typically in for-profit. So this really was a new adventure for us. In fact, when we sought approval with the province for this, I think this was the only contract they had done with a municipality. Michelle's shaking her head. So this was really unusual. But honestly, what we tried to do is reflect the whole socio-economic continuum. So we have everything from affordable housing, apartment suites, life lease model, which is similar to a condominium, only age specific, right up to retirement living, and then long-term care, because we know there's various needs in the community for our seniors. So we added 42 retirement home apartment suites. And it has full service. So we have an RPN, a registered practical nurse, 24/7, and then we have PSWs there during the day and evenings. And we provide all their meals. There's a care component up to 30 minutes a day of personal care is included with their rent and service package. And then recreational programs we offer 7 days a week, because we know that social piece is probably one of the most critical components of the entire campus. We know the statistics for seniors living in the community, many of them live alone, and they become socially isolated, especially when they can't drive and if there isn't transportation. So we really focused on that. And then we have a la carte services, so they can purchase services, and anybody on the campus can do the same, purchases services over and above what's not included in their package. We also, just mentioned real quick, we have a guest suite. We learned from that. We're going to build more of those with our next campus development. It's been a tremendous partnership with the hospital. So they have patients who, that are become ALC, alternate level of care. They're not ready. They can't go back into the home. They can't go right into long-term care. So we rent that suite out. We partner with the hospital for folks in the hospital. They get more intensive care support 24/7, and then they transition back into the home. And it's similar to our respite and long-term care, but it's not regulated. It's an additional service we provide. And it's been fantastic partnership. It's really, I think, helped the hospital and helped our seniors in the community. Next slide, please. Georgian terraces. So this is our affordable housing unit, 40 units, 1 and 2 bedroom units, a mix. We have accessible units as well. On average, it's the rent is about 80% market rate. There's 12 designated units within that we partnered with around mental health, dual diagnosis, and domestic abuse. So folks with those specific needs, we have a priority wait list to fill those units first. And it has a modified, just a very modest support package. So these folks are independent, but they do have 3 dinner meals included in their package weekly. We provide transportation outings, access to programs, 24/7 emergency response. And then we do an annual unit clean every year. It's part of the package. And part of that is just to inspect the units. Sometimes we see hoarding, we see collections of items, it may not be safe, etc. So it gives us an opportunity to ensure their unit is well cared for, in good shape, and there aren't any kind of safety issues happening. And as I mentioned, they have access to any of those services over and above as well. Next slide, please. Life lease market rental. So we have a 40-unit apartment building as well that are life lease. A mix of life lease and a regular or higher end, I guess, apartment units. And then we have 17 garden homes that are kind of a split as well. Half are life lease model, half are apartment or rental. And that wasn't initially intended, although we did a market analysis. We sold about 50% of our life lease in both the apartments and the garden homes, and then kind of hit a wall. Before we actually opened the doors, we weren't selling. And we started to collect this wait list of people interested in those units, but they wanted to rent them, not purchase them. At their stage in life, they just didn't want to make that investment. And so we worked with a realtor. We found out, what appropriate rental rates would be. And we ended up on a short-term renting the units. It worked so well. They were happy, and it created a revenue stream that we hadn't anticipated, which helps sustain the whole campus. So we ended up seeking approval from council to maintain that split. And as we go forward with our next campus, we'll have a similar split, a portion of life lease and a portion of market rentals. Next slide, please. So this is the Community Health and Wellness Center. I'm not going to list all of them, but you can see we've packed in as many support services and amenities as we can, trying to create this community inside a larger community, knowing that folks often can't easily get out to different services and amenities. And so we've had great partnerships, as you saw in the video, with the local town of Penetanguishene, with their library. We actually have a library branch inside the village. And we have, the VON have they lease office space from us. They operate SMART programs for the seniors living in independent housing. I'll very quickly mention Rendezvous Bistro and Pub. Again, it's a license. That was a real specific mandate. I wanted to make sure we had a licensed pub as part of that restaurant, because we wanted, again, to reflect the community at large, and those are important needs too. And I have to tell you, pub night, is it Wednesday night, Michelle? Wednesday night? It's our most popular program that we offer. They organize to have entertainment come in, someone playing a guitar, singing, or playing our piano. Our residents bring their families in from the community. It's quite, in fact, we've had to expand because it's gotten so large. It's really a fun night. So lots and lots of different services involved. Next slide, please. So the next slides, you can kind of quickly just move through, but they give you a kind of the look and feel. On the right-hand side, you can see that's our dining space. There's a sitting space on the left with the fireplace, and then that's the main entrance to the long-term care home. And just while you're looking at the dining space, we were able to capture some efficiencies in the building design as well. So we actually have 2 resident care units that share one large dining room, and right in the center of the dining room is the servery. So we have the dietary staff come into that location, and they're able to serve the residents across both dining rooms. So we've saved some walking steps and, you know, attained some synergies because of the building design. Next slide, please. And again, this shows you some other pictures that I'll just focus on the top right. That's one of our tub rooms, which we call our spas. In our last design, in our older homes, they were done beautifully years back, but the tub rooms were these sterile, white, yucky, hospital-like rooms. And if you're a senior or someone in a long-term care home and you have to get, you get a tub bath a couple of times a week, and you might have some confusion layered on top of your condition, it's really scary for folks to be taken into these clinical tub rooms. So we wanted to make it look and feel like a spa room. So you can see there's heated planks on the ceiling, cedar planks with the heating, ambient heating from the ceiling. We put some glass block in there, some tile. We just tried to make it really warm and inviting. I think they play music. I don't see any plants. We talked about plants, but if we have plants in there, they're probably fake. But we really focused on our tub rooms to really make them a much better experience. And the bottom right, you can see that's again some efficiencies. Where the organ is, that end is our chapel, is our worship center. And you can appreciate that is a really big program for us, for all of our seniors. So they come to the central location from the independent housing, from the long-term care. And we have it so that there's a divider, so you can make a smaller, more intimate room, depending on what the needs are of our residents and family, or open it up. And I can tell you for church services, it's packed. It's a full house. So, and we also have a video camera. Some of these things we've been up and running 7 years. I can hardly believe it now. So later on we put a video camera in the center from the ceiling, so that people that can't actually make it to the center can watch it from the rooms. So we can stream it into their apartment units. So it's really, that's been a real because people's needs are different. So that's been a real help as well. Next slide, please. I love the lady on the right. She's our horticulturist. So our residents love to look after the flowers and gardens inside, as well as we have raised gardens throughout and gardens throughout the campus as well. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about the components of the campus itself, aging at home, and I'll quickly go through this. And we do have, I put together a white paper just to give some background, because there's so many components. So if you don't have access to this, I know it's online, but we can send you hard copies too. We're happy to do that. But aging at home. So we wanted to have this community setting where as people's needs changed, they don't have to move. They can access whatever services and amenities they need to stay healthy. Socialization, I mentioned that, huge. We know it's a big factor in health, and people's health can deteriorate. People can die earlier without socialization. So we really built, and we've grown. It started at 5 days a week. We have recreational programs and services 7 days a week now. Housing options, again, we know the broader community, there's a mix of needs, both socioeconomic, the size of the units, et cetera. So we tried to build in as many different types of housing as we could. And services obviously is a really important part to maintaining health. Next slide, please. Community hub, I talked about that. It's a core concept for us, and it's worked really well. And I mentioned, or in the video it mentions, we actually have a doctor's office. So with he's part of a family health team with a nurse practitioner. And boy, that's been a really great fit as well. So he brings his patients in from the broader community, as well as his patients that live on campus. And I would say that everything in the campus is open to the broader community. And we actually, Penetanguishene started up a bus service. We helped with that too. They linked with their neighbor Penetanguishene, and now we have a bus that stops right at the front door of the campus, which is really neat. So we have people come in, and that allows our folks to get out into the broader community. And what's not on here is we actually started with a farmer's market. They come in. We just started that in the new year, Michelle.
We had our first market in February, and then pandemic hit us.
Great. So we'll get back to that, but really neat partnership. Again, they have high school students that help them out. It's fresh. It helps our local farmers. It's just a really great connection. So that really is around the partnership and collaboration. And you know what, people in the community wanted to participate. So we've had no shortage of partners. It's been wonderful. And then the seniors outreach. So I talked about that. We have the Meals on Wheels. So we prepare the meals. We partner with the Red Cross to deliver out into the community. And our latest adventure is home and community care. So we had home care staff coming in to provide care to our independent seniors in various housing components, as well as our retirement home. And we've just, the last 6 months, achieved a new partnership. We had council approve it. So now we've taken on the contract for the home care services for personal support workers specifically in all the housing. So they have the same care provider for that continuity. They get to know the staff on campus. And we can do it, a little bit cheaper because we're not mobilizing. Our staff are already there. So we're pretty excited about that. And at some point we may be able to broaden into the surrounding community. I don't know if I mentioned that, Michelle, so just smile under the mask. Okay, and then the last piece is age-friendly community planning. And I'm sure you're very aware of that. So all the various components really fit with building an age-friendly community. Next slide, please. So that just shows you the housing capacity. We created a lot of additional housing. We did reduce our wait list. Unfortunately, long-term care has gone up again. It's a moving target since we opened. We actually have been approved for 3 more beds. We converted space at Georgian Manor. And then we actually have an application in to add another 16 units. For a specialized, we've been appointed the provider of a specialized behavioral support unit that we're converting space. So we want to add 16 more beds so we maintain our regular number of beds for long-term care in the community. And to be honest, 160 is typically kind of the sweet spot in terms of number of beds to really maximize your efficiencies around, administration costs, et cetera. So with 60 more beds, if we're approved, that'll get us to 162 beds. So that we expect to see some more efficiencies as well. Promoting age at home, we'll quickly go through the next slide to the next slide. I talked about that, all the different concepts. Sustainability piece, and I mentioned this. So, literally when we open the doors with our new business model, we dropped in our tax levy significantly, and it's amongst the lowest. I think we continue to maintain the lowest bad cost for long-term care at this facility. And at the bottom you can see that's our reserve contribution. So we're obviously not for profit, we're municipal, but many of the housing programs generate revenue. So that retirement home generates annual revenue for us over and above our costs. Those higher market rate apartment suites generate revenue over and above our costs. And so those revenues go right into our reserve contributions, and then we reinvest. So it's up over $500,000 now that's over and above that goes into our reserve every year from the community housing programs. And so then now we're building, reserves so that when the roof goes, we've got some money to repair it, and the windows go, we've got some money. And we also reinvest. We've added additional 7-day-a-week programming, and we originally had an RPN in one of our units 12 hours a day. We increased it to 24, and it's all paid through those revenues. So there's no cost for any of the community housing and services. there's no cost to the taxpayers. The only portion that we still have a levy, and I was hoping we'd get rid of it, is the long-term care home. We've reduced it substantively. That one's tough with our current funding, and that could be a whole other presentation, so I won't bore you, but you know, we're not funded as at least we feel appropriately for long-term care. Next slide, please. And then this just talks, you know, what we've done is we've compared our costs either to the residents themselves or our costs, just to compare to a hospital bed, where they, you know, if they don't have care, they end up in hospital, or even home care. And as you can see on the left, the table on the left, our costs to operate these models are much cheaper. So it really helps the broader healthcare system. And then obviously there was a huge kick to our local economy. We added 45 new jobs, and then the construction alone was a significant boost to our local economy. And you can see that the spin-off from the additional jobs and the, you know, the indirect spend in the local communities is almost $4 million as a result of this expansion. Next slide, please. Boy, that's a busy one. So all I'm going to say is we worked really hard to get funding for this project. It was an $80 million project. We were able to secure about 80% of that 80 million through various ministries and different, we had a fundraising program, it was 807,000. So we had all these different pieces, and they all aligned. We were very fortunate that covered, you know, 80%, which really reduced the amount that was left to come out of our tax base. Next slide, please. And I won't go through each of these, but these are, in terms of a business case, these were some pieces that, you know, we looked at to make sure, was the timing right? Is the economy right? Or, you know, or is the market there? So we went through each of these, you know, different components to line up, and we're doing the same. We've done the same thing now because we're looking at another redevelopment in our oldest home that I mentioned. Next slide, please. So really to kind of wrap up our village campus, seniors we hugely value our seniors. They are the cornerstone of any community, and they deserve to have appropriate housing and services and to age with dignity. And that's really what it's all about for us. In this campus, I'm so thrilled to say did that. Our folks are very happy at Georgian Village. And we've seen, you know, huge success in this housing model. And you know, I have to say the not-for-profit difference. I'm also the board chair of Advantage Ontario, and I do feel very strongly, you know, for-profit sector play a role, and not to diminish, you know, their role, but as municipalities, you know, we always step up where other service providers don't. That's what we do. We're here to serve our residents, and we're not in this to make money or to profit. We're here to, you know, ensure a high quality life for, you know, the people we serve. So we're very proud of this, and I promote this as much as I can with other municipalities, because I think you know, your roles in the community are so important, and you do such a great job in looking after all community residents. So I'll stop there and get off my little pedestal, and we'll go to the next slide, please. That is not me, just so you know. There's none of that with any of us. Next slide, please. So the last slide, I think this is the last slide, is just our SIMCOEN Manor redevelopment. So that's one of our four I talked about. It's our oldest. So we're essentially doing the same thing. We're taking the model of Georgian Village, and we're applying it at SIMCOEN Manor, and it's going to be bigger. We had two milestones. We had to purchase adjacent property. We didn't have, it's on about 8.5 acres. We needed more to do a full campus, and we've done that. We've purchased the adjacent property. That took a little while, but we're pleased that has occurred. And we've been applying for these 34 beds. We've applied a couple of times, last government, now this government. The application's in, we're bugging them all the time. we're hoping we're gonna get the thumbs up, because that's right now, County Council has just approved. I brought back I took a preliminary business plan forward about 1.5 to 2 years ago, and then I brought back a final once we attained the additional property, and they've given us the green light to proceed with this redevelopment, subject to these additional beds. So we're waiting on pins and needles. Once we get the green light, our architects are working on the design right now, and we're hoping to go forward in the next year and open the doors in 2024. It will have a few more components, those that I mentioned at Georgian Village. We're adding some townhomes, smaller, just a different model of housing. And we're all adding in what I call a golden girl model home. Maybe I shouldn't say it that way, but it's actually an individual dwelling, a home that has up to, I think, 9 or 10 bedrooms in it. So they share common amenities, a kitchen, living space, etc. But they have their own bedrooms with bathrooms, etc. And the whole premise is that we can provide services that's a lot cheaper, a lot more affordable to them, that they wouldn't be able to afford if they were living on their own. I should say frugal, not cheaper. Anyway, so that's the model. We're pretty excited about the new components. And again, it'll center around this community center that has all those services and amenities. So I think that brings us to the end. Yes. So Michelle and I are happy to respond to any questions you might have.
Jane, a great presentation, just fantastic. I'll open the floor up to the committee. Does the committee have any questions of Jane or Michelle?
Mr. Chair, it's Brian. I have a question for
Brian.
Jane.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Jane, for the presentation. That was great. And the video was good as well. Right at the end of the video, there was a list of what you call partnerships. I was going to ask you about those partnerships, unless they're the same list as the one you were talking about in your presentation about the Rendezvous Community Center. Is that the same list?
Yeah, so it gives you a few of them, actually. There's many partnerships, and I didn't go into a lot of detail, but one of the things that we did in preparation, and we're just getting ready to do the same, is I worked with the LIN, so I'm not sure what that's going to look like, whether it'll be the Ontario Health Teams or the LINs, but what I did was we partnered with the LIN, and we had kind of a public forum, and we invited all the healthcare partners and the broader community to come to a meeting. And we kind of gave an overview of what our vision was. And then we, looked for partnerships, who might be interested in leasing space, providing services. And that was that's how the VON ended up partnering with us. And Georgian College, the video touches on that. We actually got them to offer the RPN, Registered Practical Nurse program, on site at Georgian Village. In the county of Simcoe, the nursing programs are only in Barrie, the Barrie campus location, and it's too far. It's too far for many people to travel. People that are looking for second careers, etc. They have kids, they have families, they can't drop everything and travel 45 minutes to an hour to the local campus. So that's an example of a great partnership. They offered a part-time program. It took about 4 years, but it was for people living in the surrounding community. They took the courses at our campus. They've all graduated the first intake, and we hired as many as we could. It was beautiful. It was a win-win. So partnerships has been a tremendous support. In fact, I don't think the campus would be what it is if we didn't have all those partners.
Okay, thank you. And just a final comment, Mr. Chair, if I could, I just wanted to mention that the affordable housing attached to this facility, I think, is a great idea. And maybe just want to plant the seed with Kim that when we are doing Rockwood Terrace, I'm not sure how much land we're going to use or how much is left, but we should be keeping things like that in mind, because I think it's a great idea. And at some point, we have to stop talking about affordable housing and doing something about it. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Good comments. Other comments from the committee? Barb, go ahead.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Jane, for a fabulous presentation. This has been very exciting to see. I'm sorry we haven't been able to make the actual trip, but we'll get to that hopefully at some point. I'm really interested and curious in your Golden Girl concept. I think this is really a way forward in terms of senior care, because there are many generational families, for example, that of one sex or another, doesn't really matter, where they want to live in a shared accommodation. So the socialization picks up, is in full bloom. The ability to have your privacy and yet still share common areas and so on. And I'm wondering, does this exist anywhere? You're talking 9 bedrooms in a home. Even could you go even smaller? Do you think, like 4 or 5 rooms?
Yeah.
And does it exist anywhere now? And where will this happen in your planning? What the location?
So thank you for your questions. This model does exist. Abbeyfield, I think, is one of the top models. You might have heard of that. So it's similar to, we're not using Abbeyfield, but it's similar model where groups of seniors share in an individual home, like a residential home. And you can add or subtract. So you can go bigger or you can go smaller. I think we pushed the envelope a little bit to 9. That's fairly large. To try and provide. We know there's a huge need, really a lot of growth in the southern part of the county, and the seniors demographic is quite high in that area. So we were just trying to avail as many spaces, but you absolutely could go smaller. And there are 2 models. So we've chosen we're going to build the home. It's going to be part of our entire campus development. So when we build all these, and we originally were going to build in 2 phases, but we're going to build up instead. So we purchased the 20.6 acres plus the 8.5 that we have. But we wanted to, ensure there was room for growth. At Georgian Village, we jammed everything into the 20.7 acres there, and we have no potential growth area. In fact, we're negotiating with the adjacent farmer to purchase more land for parking and other needs. So in this one, we revised our project to actually build up. So it's going to all be in one phase now. We don't have to displace the folks living in the existing long-term care home and supportive housing. And that Golden Girl model would be part of that. We will own the property, so they'll pay rent from us. But there are models where you build a home and you have a group of seniors, they can purchase, and have equity themselves. So that is it's probably more common. So they all have shares in the home. And then so they have ownership, and then they can, work together to have services shared as well. So there's a couple of ways to do it. But we'd be happy to send some information, some links with other, because we know there are other entities out there that are building these types of models. So we can share the information that we're aware of.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Scott, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Jane. I remember seeing your presentation 2 or 3 years ago at AMO and was very excited at that point. And it's just reconfirmed my enthusiasm towards what you're doing in Simcoe County. So I'm very pleased that you're able to present to our Committee of Management today. Just a question, did you get much pushback from the private sector in regards to retirement home beds? Because I think if it's $67 a day, I think that's probably under market from what the private sector is charging.
So thank you for your support and your comments. And I have a whole section of new gray hair from that process. So yes, would be my short answer. We did. It's not typical for municipalities to venture into this world. So we did have an objection from a local private operator who kind of challenged us a couple of times, went to local council, tried to, to stop some of the approval processes along the way. So yes, would be the short answer. And we've tried to partner with the for-profit sector as well. We recognize they're an important part of our communities. And your comments about the pricing, we didn't want to go in because we're municipal and undercut, and that was really important. We wanted to come in and be as affordable as possible because we are municipal. But a couple of years before we actually ever had this shovel in the ground, our staff started to do comparisons of pricing to see what, I think we had 10 comparators across the region to see what the price points, what the rent was for retirement homes, what services. And we intentionally stayed within that pricing range because we wanted to be fair and equitable to other businesses in the community. So we did come in at the lower end of the range. And quite honestly, we were concerned about occupancy pre-opening because we know retirement homes across the province have challenges with occupancy. And we've seen it in the county where, some operators have had 40 or 50% fill rate and they sit with empty units. And we know that is a struggle. So we were really concerned. Within the first year, we were full. We operated about a 3% vacancy rate. We fill pretty much as, fairly quickly. We have the odd times where we'll have a number of units come up all at once. And so we might go for a few months, but I think because it's a campus and we have other programs and services available right there, kind of one-stop shopping. And because we're government, we're municipal, there's a trust element. Georgian Manor had been in the community for years and years and years, our long-term care home, and they trusted us. So we have not, it's up and running 7 years now. So I can say with a lot of confidence, we have not had occupancy issues at all in the retirement home or any of the others. And we do try to partner with them. We've extended memberships to their residents in retirement homes in the broader community to use our facilities. To partner however we can, because we do want to support the broader community. But short answer is yes, it was a bit of a challenge at the outset.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, one more question. If someone goes into Georgian Village, into the retirement home, do they have an easier option getting into the long-term care facility if they're already a resident at Georgian Village?
So I'll look to Michelle. I know we've had stats. That is a barrier because they still have to go through the provincial wait list. And I think, Michelle, is it about 50% of all of our transfers to long-term care, I think, go into our own long-term care home, the others go elsewhere. But Michelle, maybe you can
I would say a little bit higher than 50%. And the one good thing with here is that, so they do have to go through the wait list and they don't have a higher priority because they're already on campus over somebody who's out in the community. But what's great here is that we will support them, even if they're on a crisis list, we will support them until they can get their preferred choice if possible. And so we've been able to do that with many. We've also, and I'm not sure if Jane mentioned our priority placement policy that we have. So we do have a priority placement policy for all of the housing except long-term care because that's legislated differently. So if somebody lives in one of our either Georgian terraces or affordable housing or life lease or market rentals, and their needs are such that they really would benefit from maybe being in a retirement home with 24 hours support and staff on site, they will have a higher priority on the wait list over somebody coming in from externally from off campus. And so we will get them into our retirement home a lot sooner. And so that priority placement works for that type of housing into retirement or anywhere else. But unfortunately, because of the barriers of legislation, everything, we do not have that. And I believe that's been on the tables for discussion for many years for these campuses to have a bit of a priority for those already out residing, but we're not there yet. But we can support them in place. Even if they were in an independent living housing, they can choose to purchase a la carte services such as nursing or PSW or things like that. And we will support them in their own home to be able to age there until they get their placement offer, if that is the route they're going.
Well, thanks again. I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Jane, a question to either you or Michelle from the chair, kind of a loaded question. with the pandemic and so on, it's been a different learning curve for everybody all the way through. Do you expect to see a lot of changes in the way you do business at the end of this pandemic?
That is a great question. I think, if I were to make a guess, educated guess, I'd say yes. There will be some differences. We will have somewhat of a new normal. Some of the precautions we're taking, universal precautions around masks and et cetera, I think they're here for a long time. I wonder, even in our communities right now at the county, we're debating emergency management's under my hat too, and we're debating right now a bylaw for universal masking when you're out in public, in enclosed spaces, so in businesses, in stores, etc. So I think probably things are going to be different. And I can tell you the one good thing is the virtual technology like this. We didn't really use this nearly like we do now. It's our normal, not just as staff, but for residents. We're able to connect our residents to their families through FaceTime and their iPhones and Zoom and Skype and all these various methods, and it's really helpful. It's really helped bridge, and we know lots of families come from afar too, so they wouldn't necessarily be able to see them. So we've really changed kind of the way we do things, and I think some of those pieces are here to stay. I don't think they'll go away.
Thanks, Jane.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Christine.
Thank you. I just want to say that I really enjoyed the video and the presentation, and I'm hoping that all of our county council members would have the opportunity to experience both the video and presentation. Very, very well done. And I really like the concept of the long-term care campus living and the whole new way of looking after seniors. I like the link with affordable housing and social services. And I feel this is a new direction for County Council to embrace for sure. A couple questions. Is there a doctor, an assigned doctor on campus? And also, is the facility pet friendly in terms of just having pets? And also, how do you accommodate the support animals? And then I have a follow-up question, if I might, after that. Okay,
so yes, we have a physician that runs a clinic. So not everybody necessarily goes to that physician, but he did take on residents if they were looking for a physician. Some prefer to keep their own physician they've had for years and years, but that was a really nice adjunct to the whole campus development. And some of our attending physicians in long-term care also have patients that live in the independent housing. I know our medical director, Dr. Woods, and he'll wander over and visit, knock on their door and visit some of his patients that actually live on campus. So it's really been a really neat concept around that. Now, I've forgotten your second question already.
Oh, pet friendly?
Oh, yes, that's really important. Absolutely pet friendly. Cats and dogs. We have limits on size. Some of our residents have pushed on the limits. There's quite a big poodle. I'm not sure what it is, standard poodle. So I think it exceeds the weight limit that we put in place. But absolutely, we know pets are a normal part of, people. I have 3 dogs. I'm just really crossing my fingers they don't start barking before the end of this. So it's a normal part. It is pet friendly. And they are able to take them for walks on the grounds. If I were to do this again, and maybe in future, having some type of pet service would have been a great service to build into the campus to help them, dog walking services, or we didn't do that, but boy, we could, if there was somebody out in the community that wanted to start up a business, that would be the place to come. So it is pet friendly. And the other piece I didn't mention was smoking. So it's a smoke-free campus. So they cannot smoke, they're not smoking their units anywhere and they can smoke on the grounds in designated areas only. And that was a tough one. But we chose corporately, we've been doing that as a county with our social housing as well. We've been making them smoke-free buildings. So I don't think there's been too many issues, Michelle. I think it's been maintained, both of those, the pet friendly and the smoking has been maintained quite well.
Thank you. And just to supplement to that, you had mentioned that there's that you had presented a final business plan to council. Would that be available online to take a look at?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So we can send the link. I think the date escapes me, but it was early in May. Time flies by with this pandemic, but we'll absolutely send the link so that you can have access to the business case.
Great, thank you. And you should be most proud of the accomplishment here. Very, very well done. So continued support on that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Christine. Does any other committee member have a question or staff? John? Go ahead, John.
Thanks. Yep, thanks. I had the opportunity, excuse me, to talk to you at AMO last year. I think, Jane, we did one of those, probably you did hundreds of them, 10-minute hallway talks. And one of the things that really impressed me was the passion that you have for what you're doing, and that. And I think one of the benefits we have is we've got a staff that has that passion as well, and is open-minded, and the idea of it, long-term care, not just being long-term care, but being the community of campus like you have, and being a big part of the community is just such a good idea. And one of the things the pandemic has done, we've had a lot of support for the county-run long-term care facilities. And with what's happened during the pandemic, I think that support has only grown, and the trust with our facilities is huge. So you know, any of these ideas, and like you say, we're all borrowing different ones from different areas. I think the more we can get together like this and just share some ideas, the things that we can add in are it's just open. You know, everything from, like we're talking about, already having the ambulance service running out of the campus, so it's there already, and things like that. So thanks again, and yeah, that's, I think, driving thing here is public support and the passion that people have for our facilities. Even, you know, they're wonderful as they are, but the improvements would just be something else. So just wanted to say thanks.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for those wonderful comments.
Kim, any comments? You're muted, Kim.
Apologies. There are a couple of questions. First of all, thanks, Jane and Michelle, for all your time. Really appreciate it. Simcoe County staff, how many people do you have working there in some capacity?
At Georgian Village, I think we're about upwards 250 staff on the campus. And that's the majority of those staff are in the long-term care home. But Michelle, you must have what, 40 or 50 staff, I bet. 40 staff at least.
Community side, we'd have about, I'd say close to 40, you're right. And that would include nursing, recreationists, maintenance,
Yes.
dietary, everything. Yeah.
So I was just, yeah, so you've kept it in-house for the most part. Yeah. That these are your staff rather than contracting things out.
Yeah. Sorry, Kim. We started with, we did contract out the community side when we first opened because
Yes.
it was so huge, you know, and we hadn't done this magnitude. So we thought, oh, we'll contract out. We did a costing to ensure that that any contracted service provider would meet our costs or better. So we had a partnership with Sodexo. It was a 10-year contract. We opted out at 5 years. We found we didn't see the savings because everything over and above that was in the contract, we got billed. That didn't go so well. And not to say anything bad or disparage, you know, that company, but we just, our commitment and our quality, and it was something that we have a lot of pride in, and we just didn't see that same level until we brought it in-house. So we did bring it in-house, and we're glad of it, and no looking back. And our next adventure will be all our staff.
Thank you.
That's my recommendation.
I appreciate that experience. One other question on the development and building side. Are you using the same architect for Beaton that you did?
Yes, it's Salter Pilon Incorporated. And we did a competitive process, I have to tell you, for SIMCO, this latest redevelopment. We had used Salter Pilon for our 4 facilities over the years, like prior to years and years, they've had undergone redevelopments, and it always Pilon. So they have a real niche in seniors housing and long-term care. But we wanted to be fair, so we actually did a whole competitive bid, and we had, I think, 4 or 5 different architectural firms. Proposals. We went through a whole scoring system through our procurement, and we ended up with Salter Pilon again. So we have a great relationship with this firm, and we're really happy. I mean, we had some hiccups, some bumps. We put in additional processes around second party reviewing architectural designs, for example. When projects that are big like this, things that may seem small can slip through. So we've put in some additional rigor into our processes to double, triple check. But they, in terms of the quality, they've been amazing. They've been really great.
And you used the model where the architect provided the design, and then you are going through a second process to actually undertake the build, or is it a design build?
Well, the design is part of it. I need Don Hipple here now. I think it's construction. Right. But they're doing they're preparing right now all the design drawings to go to tender. So and then we go to tender and we'll award.
Yeah. Okay. That makes perfect sense. And from a phasing perspective, did you build the long-term care first and then the housing after, or some other, like your approach to actually building out the site?
We did it all at once, and as it turns out, we're going to do it all at once again. When we moved the long-term care people in first. I remember the day very clearly. 107 residents, and they all moved in one afternoon. The management team were absolutely awesome. They had it planned down to every detail, and our volunteers had color-coded vests for the units they were helping with. And anyway, it went really well. So we'll do the same going forward. And with this one, I think it was about I think it was close to $4 million savings by us. Because our original projections were 2 phases, by us doing it in 1 phase with escalation and other lost efficiencies by doing 2 phases. It's actually more economical for us to do it in 1. So that is the process council's approved.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jennifer, would you have any questions?
Well, I have been chatting with Jane off and on since I stepped into this role, and she offered to be a resource and a support anytime. And so I'm definitely going to take her up on that offer. I have read the white paper, and it is really inspiring. So I also just want to say thank you so much for bringing the village alive for us today on our Zoom call, and really giving us a glimpse into what's possible for us in Grey County. Lots of things to think about. And I have lots of questions, too many for our meeting. But again, I thank both you and Michelle for bringing us this overview, and I'll be in touch with some questions.
Sounds great.
For the sake of time, does the committee have any other questions? If not, I will move the meeting forward. Okay. Jane, Michelle, thanks very much. We really appreciate your great presentation, and man, we're all going to walk away from here thinking about a lot of things for our redevelopment. And
You're welcome.
Really look forward to hopefully when the pandemic's over to go over and look at your amazing project. Maybe the new one will be done by then.
2 tours in 1. We'll be waiting with open arms. So best of luck, and we're more than happy to help you along this journey. So take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
So I'll move on to the agenda then. Jennifer, before we get down to reports, did you want to make a comment before I start on these reports?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have been using a format of going through the operation reports individually for a number of months. And so this time we would like to take a slightly different approach where we can use the time most efficiently and effectively. So each executive director is going to give a highlight of some unique information or a pertinent highlight across the 3 homes. Before we start that though, Renata in her new role is as the quality specialist, the accreditation and quality specialist, is going to give an overview of the quality indicators. So that's the chart at the beginning of each of the operational reports. So I'm wondering if it would make most sense for Renata to give the overview, and then would it make sense, Mr. Chair, for you to put the Lee Manor report on the floor? Stacy can give the highlights that she's giving and then move through the reports that way, or do they need, I'm not sure what makes most sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Okay.
And if I don't do it right, please correct me. So Renata, we'll let you have the floor.
Thank you. The fourth quarter indicators were released by CIHI at the end of June, and they represent indicators or the numbers for January to March 2020. I want to extend a congratulations to the Rockwood Terrace team for meeting and exceeding the provincial average in all 9 areas. Quality indicators represent very important clinical outcomes, and they can show resident acuity as well as areas for improvement. For example, Grey Gables and Lee Manor had changes in the last quarter in a few areas. This could represent the acuity that was happening in the home from January to March, as well as areas for the teams to look at improving. Do you have any questions about the indicators for the 3 homes?
Does anyone have any questions? If not, I will move on with our first recommendation here. LTC RCM 2020 Lee Manor Operation Report to the Committee of Management for the period of April 15th, 2020 to June 14th, 2020 be received for information. I have a move by Councillor O'Leary and second by Councillor Klampus. Who is going to take this report? Totally confused here.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. Stacy Goldie, the interim executive director at Lee Manor, is going to give some highlights and then be able to answer questions to this report.
Thanks, Stacy. Welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. I have the summary I'd like to share on behalf of all 3 homes related to the virtual window and outdoor visits. From the onset of the pandemic, we recognized just how important maintaining connections would be for residents and their family members. And supporting the continuation of these important relationships became a top priority and resulted in the implementation of our Color It Connect program. And that continues to be the dominant program that recreation teams are supporting throughout the homes. During the first phase of the Color It Connect program, it involved virtual visits, and those took place via Zoom, FaceTime, Skype, along with also providing telephone calls and emails. And to date, across the 3 homes, we've supported approximately 1,700 virtual connections. And in early May, we received notification from the ministry regarding window visits. And this direction allowed the homes to move into phase 2 of our Color It Connect program. And each home was able to set up designated areas for window visits, which were implemented just in time for Mother's Day. And then in mid-June, we received further direction from the ministry permitting outdoor visits, which we worked very quickly to have available in time for Father's Day. And across all 3 homes, all phases of the Color It Connect program have been very well received. It certainly offers reassurance to worried family members. They're very grateful for the opportunity to be able to connect with their loved ones face to face. And we've certainly noticed positive impacts to the psychosocial and emotional well-being of our residents. So those are the highlights across the 3 homes. And if there are any questions related to specifically to the Lee Manor report, I can address those at this time.
Does the committee have any questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion before us? Tara, I believe I see a show of hands. Okay, carried. So we'll move on to Rockwood Terrace, that LTCRCM 2120 Rockwood Terrace Operation Report to the Committee of Management for the period of April 15th, 2020, June 14th, 2020, be received for information. I have a move by Councillor Mackey, and second by Councillor O'Leary. Karen, are you going to make comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to talk briefly videos, which, as you can see in the reports, all 3 homes have been working on over the past few months. If you haven't had a chance to look at them, I would encourage you to do so. They were a fun way to get everyone involved, residents and staff, and most were very willing participants. On the confidential side, though, we also get permission to make sure that we're not breaching any confidentiality issues when we create and release those videos. It was a great way to share with the public and especially families what was going on inside the home during these times when they weren't able to come in. So lots of fun, a great morale booster for all, and available for you to view at your leisure. The other area I would like to talk about is menus. We do and are legislated to change menus twice a year, and that's broken into summer, fall, and winter, spring. So we're just on the cusp of changing menus to our summer, fall menu. Those menus are reviewed by Residents' Council, and we work with the residents to make changes to things that are their preferences. And when we have their preferences all in place, they are approved by the dietitian to ensure we're meeting legislation as far as Canada's food guide and nutrient value and all those good things. So just wanted to share that all 3 homes are currently in the process of implementing, or will soon be implementing, the new menu for the summer fall season. I would also be happy to answer any questions anyone has to the Rockwood Terrace report.
Thanks, Karen. I believe Christine, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Really well done to all of our executive directors and staff. Thank you for supporting our seniors in our homes. Just wondering if you could comment, Karen, in terms of local sources for food. Are you able to utilize our local growers, pie makers, etc.?
Thank you. Yes. We continue to use West Grey premium beef for beef products amongst the homes. As far as items that are locally produced, we have to be careful because all of our food products have to come through a grading and processing. I'm at a loss for words. We have to get all our food and produce from inspected, federally and provincially inspected places. So unfortunately, we can't just go down the road and buy the asparagus from the farmer. However, all 3 homes take pride in offering seasonally available produce at the time. So all homes are offering strawberries right now. We do corn on the cob, all those kinds of things. We just have to be careful where we get it from.
Okay, thank you. Well done.
Thank you. If there's no other questions of Karen, I'll ask for a vote on the motion before us. All in favor? I believe that is carried. We'll move on with Grey Gables. That LTCRCM 2220 Grey Gables Operation Report to the Committee of Management for the period of April 15th, 2020, June 14th, 2020, be received for information. I have a move by Councillor Compass and second by Councillor Woodbury. Shannon, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have the report on Residence Council and Family Council. Resident councils and family councils are very important in each of the homes in keeping everyone connected and informed. Since the pandemic started, each home has developed unique methods of reaching families and keeping everyone updated on the happenings in the homes, between the newsletters, special memos, Color It Connection communication boards, and virtual town hall meetings. Jennifer also provides or continues to provide webinars updating family members as information arises that pertain to all three homes. These webinars have been very well received and provide lots of feedback. We continue to receive overwhelming support from families and the surrounding communities with uplifting cards, notes of thanks, treats to fuel the staff, and even homemade scrub caps that relieve the pressure from the ears from the masks. Every gesture serves as inspiration and motivation. That's all from my report, but I'm willing to take any questions.
Thanks, Shannon. Does the committee have any questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion before us? And I believe that is carried. So moving on to our agenda. Next item is that report LTCR CM 2320 regarding the long-term care COVID-19 status update we received for information. I have it moved by Councillor Mackey and second by Councillor Woodbury. I'm trying to see who was going to, any staff member want to speak to this, Jennifer?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'll just do a highlight of the COVID update. So in the last month, we've seen the community slowly reopening and the teams in the homes continue to be dedicated to protecting and supporting the residents, families, and the staff within each of the communities. As the childcare centers slowly reopen, we have seen an increase in staff returning to work. We continue to have no COVID-19 cases or outbreaks in any three of the homes. And as Shannon mentioned, the communities continue to rally. Just some important highlights since our last meeting. On May 31st, the ministry directed all the homes, all long-term care homes in the province to implement interval testing for staff twice in June. And all three homes completed their second round of interval testing on June 30th. On June 1st, the Ministry of Long-Term Care announced that the resident co-payment has been frozen. This means that the daily rate remains the same until December 31st, 2020. And that information has been communicated to residents and the family members. An updated version of Directive Number 3 was released on June 10th, and it outlined new guidelines for admissions from hospitals, outdoor visiting, and clarification regarding the outbreak definition. A guidance document accompanied it titled Resuming Visiting in Long-Term Care. And it outlined the first phase of that phased in resumption of visits started with outdoor visits. And Stacy spoke to the outdoor visits. Just looking through. I would like to highlight that all of the visiting, the Color It Connect and the outdoor visit program are very much a team effort and involve the county's IT department in creating an online scheduling tool for all three homes. They also have supported by continuously updating the electronic screener that we use to screen visitors as well as our staff twice a day. They have assisted with updating our web pages and all of our educational resources. The purchasing team has also been really supportive in assisting us to source out appropriate PPE. So a shout out to our partners in other departments in the county. With increased testing, there is a higher risk of positive test result, whether it be a true or a false positive. So Directive 3 provided some guidelines on dealing with probable false positives. So it does allow us to work through a process where we can be transparent and communicate information to residents, family members, the community, staff, but doesn't immediately trigger an outbreak. So we were pleased to see that. New admissions from hospitals can now occur as long as some very strict guidelines are followed. And additional restrictions have been added to reduce the chance of spread of COVID-19 in 3 and 4 bed rooms, so rooms shared by 3 or 4 people, by limiting those rooms to only 2. This change does not affect any of our 3 homes, but it does affect 147 beds across Grey Bruce. As we move forward, our focus is on developing a plan to reintroduce family members into the home, family caregivers. And we're calling this program Designated Care Partners. Our commitment to our residents and their loved ones is to provide a safe way to support residents that allows for the much needed emotional and mental well-being that a family member can provide. Our homes have created a planning and coordinating committee that will work together to balance the needs of the residents against the risk of spread of infection. This will be a partnership that will include the residents, families, and staff, and we hope to have the details finalized shortly. During the pandemic, many sectors have joined forces to provide support to one another. And through one of those regional groups that I am a part of, I was introduced to Hotel Dieu out of Windsor, Grace Hospital in Windsor. And they're a chronic care hospital. And they have introduced a Designated Care Partners program into their hospital and have very willingly met with us and shared their policies and their procedures that we're able to adapt and apply to long-term care. So it's nice to be working with partners who have done this work before and can support us in answering some of our questions and helping us balance some of the risk. In addition, our local hospital partners have also reintroduced family members for inpatient patients, and they're calling those folks partners in care. And so this is a trend that we're seeing in the hospital sector, and we're working towards introducing this in the long-term care home. The other highlight is that an infection prevention and control committee has been developed regionally to look at processes and support across the healthcare system. And this will help us sustain our strategies from now and into the next normal of what does COVID living look like in long-term care and in the health sector. So those are the highlights from the update. And if anyone has any questions.
Christine, go ahead. Christine, you're on mute.
Thank you for the reminder, Mr. Chair. Great presentation, Jennifer. Could you just refresh my memory in terms of emergency housing placement, how if the individual needs a room in one of our facilities, how is that being managed? And are there any move-ins and discharges at this point? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I'll just ask for some clarification on the first part of your question.
Oh, what I'm thinking is if there's an individual that requires to move into one of our facilities, how would that be handled by you and your executive directors and staff?
Okay, thank you for that. So there have been move-ins, people moving in from the community throughout the stages of the pandemic. Recently, the directive allowed for residents to move in from hospital. And so there are some very strict criteria that are applied. And I may defer to one of the executive directors for clarification. But a new person moving in needs to have a negative COVID test within 24 hours of their move-in. And then when they do move in, they are isolated in their room. So we do provide them in-room service. Staff go to them for 14 days, and then they're able to come out and be a part of the congregate community once they have passed that 14 days.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine and Jennifer. Is there any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor of?
Sorry, Chair, I think Councillor Mackey had a question.
Go ahead, Scott.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Jennifer, in your report, you talked about the emergency service workers and the new positions that have been helping us out. Is that a position that you think going forward may help fill the employment gap that we're having in long-term care?
For you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor Mackey, for that question. The emergency support workers are a temporary position. However, there is opportunity to explore a similar position. Other organizations call them care support aides. And it is an opportunity that we have been in discussion with our partners our union partners in introducing a position like that into long-term care to support the shortage when we are not able to, if we're short, if we have some last minute shortages, or just to provide that extra assistance as we struggle with some of the health human resources.
Okay.
So Jennifer, you and our executive director see merit in this sort of position?
I do. I think that it's an opportunity to support, make sure the residents are having all of their needs met on a day-to-day basis. And I also think it's an opportunity to introduce the health sector to new workers and support them in, if it's something that they like to do, then maybe they will go back, go to school. Maybe we can support them to do their PSW course or their RPN or dietary. It gives them a real introduction into long-term care. And I think that we can use that to support building the workforce in long-term care, which is a great sector to work in. We just need to bring people to experience it. And we are in some early conversations with Georgian College on what opportunities might there be to have some training available for the emergency support workers or care support aides that would also complement a PSW certificate or other type of education.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you just bring us up to date on where we are with that subsidized pay that the government promised? Just haven't heard much about that lately.
Right, thank you. Thank you for that. So the information trickled in from the province, and I see Kevin is on the screen, so he can provide some update. There's a number of ministries that are all involved in the pandemic pay. So we're nearing the stage where we're at a position that we have enough information to move forward. And Kevin?
Welcome, Kevin, go ahead.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, no, we've prepared a worksheet with trying to identify all the eligible employees and the eligible roles. So that was done last week and it's been sent out to the staff for review. So we're meeting tomorrow again with the staff and HR. And then once we get that nailed down, then HR will be able to how long it's going to take them to generate that pay. It'll be a separate pay that'll go out to these employees. And so we should have that out shortly, I believe. But yeah, we're fighting a bit with vacations and staff, but we hope to have it out shortly now that we've got all the information on this. And we have received funding now for it too as well. So yeah, we're proceeding with this and hope to have it out shortly.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yep, that's great. Thank you very much.
Does the committee have any more questions of Jennifer or Kevin? None. All in favor of the motion before us? Yes, carried. Does the committee want to take a 2-minute break, or you want to carry on for correspondence? Move on, okay.
Yes, please.
Excuse me. We're down to correspondence then. I wonder if we want to do with our add-on correspondence first about Advantage Ontario. It was moved by Councillor Klumpus and second by Councillor Woodbury. It's just for information, I believe. Terry, do you want to speak to that as it was information only?
I'll have to ask him to clarify that, please.
Maybe it makes the most sense actually to, we have several pieces of correspondence, all relating to the same thing with regard to the potential of a long-term care commission being struck by the province. The letter from Sarnia, which is also to be received for information, kind of takes a different path than the two letters from Chatham-Kent and the one that was sent to you this morning from Advantage Ontario, which is the Long-Term Care Association. So Jennifer was going to speak together on the three pieces of correspondence that were providing some advice and guidance to the province. And so I will let her do that. I will just say that from a staff perspective, the tack I would prefer to see us take, and this is just my own advice, is that we follow in Chatham-Kent's model of providing some positive advice to the province about the things that are most important to Grey County, as far as, you know, the different pieces of information or areas of focus that the commission could look to. So if you want to put the Sarnia one on the floor, I'll just make a couple of comments about that if we can.
Okay, just for education for the chair, I guess. I have. Do you want each one of these correspondence put on separate with separate movers, or?
I think that's the way that the agenda went out. Is that not correct, Tara?
It is, but if the committee wishes to support the last three, like the two from Chatham-Kent and the Advantage Ontario one, we can do that in one motion as well.
Why don't you do that?
Sure.
Okay. If that's okay with the committee, I will pick moved by Barb Klumpus and second by Councillor Mackey to put those three items on the floor. If that's okay. So now I believe who was going to speak to the three items? Was it going to be Jennifer?
Yes.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. And this is something that has come up often in our meetings in the past, is around advocacy and opportunity to share from the committee and support a direction for the province. And these three letters do a very good job at highlighting the important issues. So as Kim mentioned, the province has recently announced a commission into long-term care for now and into the future. And the outcomes of this commission have the potential to be very impactful to our operations. The two Chatham-Kent letters do a very good job of summarizing the opportunities for change and improvement. The areas that I would like to highlight are specifically around supporting a health human resources strategy with a focus on staffing ratios and direct resident care time. Their comments also support the commission with a solution focus and focused on the commission having outcomes that recommend best practices and include peer reviews and resident and family reviews. And I would recommend that we support that. I think that that's really an important piece. The second letter from Chatham-Kent really talks about the strategy to focus on the psychosocial and emotional needs of residents as very important and key to quality of life. And that's something that we always knew in long-term care. And we see it even more evidently during a pandemic, where an entire group of folks are isolated, are only able to connect with their loved ones virtually, and it's having an impact. And so if we have an opportunity to influence the future of long-term care, the psychosocial and emotional well-being of our residents needs to be a key factor in that. The Advantage Ontario letter has a number of recommendations, and the two that I would like to highlight is the focus on long-term care homes as an important part of the governance structure of the Ontario health teams, and ensuring that there is a strategy for new development and redevelopment that considers infection prevention and control measures as part of the design requirements. And so I would recommend to committee that we draft a letter supporting the comments made in the Chatham-Kent letters, as well as the points made in the Advantage Ontario letter dated June 19th. And if you have questions or comments.
Thanks, Jennifer. Just for a point of clarity, Tara, we should add the Advantage Ontario letter to this grouping that we have in our motion?
Yes, so there is the Advantage Ontario and the two from Chatham-Kent are all in the motion.
Thank you.
Currently.
And back to you, Jennifer. Are you suggesting that this letter come from the committee or from county council or both?
That's a good question that I might ask Kim. I'm not sure what makes most sense. So what does the committee recommend?
Kim, any comment?
I think that if this committee supports the recommendation that Grey County provide a letter back to the province, then that can happen when the minutes are adopted at county council. And I think it would be great if it came from on behalf of all of Grey County.
Okay. So what is the committee's wish? Scott? You're muted.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. I believe that certainly the committee should support it, and then we move it along to county council and get the support from county council so that we can forward it to the province. Thanks.
So just a point of clarity then, Tara, do you want to suggest a motion of support for the three items? Or how do you want to do that?
Yes, please. That's what is currently on the floor, I believe, moved by Councillor Clumpus and Woodbury.
So that is sufficient, that motion will support?
Yes.
Okay. If there's no other questions on those three pieces of correspondence, I'll ask for a vote on the. Scott, do you have a question or just your voting?
I was just ahead of you and was prepared to vote, Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead. All in favor? It is carried, I believe. Now we're going to put the Sarnia motion on the floor. That the resolution from the city of Sarnia regarding long-term care home improvements be received for information. It was moved by Scott, but I do not have a seconder, Tara, unless I'm missing that. Second by Mr. Warden. No. Welcome, Mr. Warden. You were fairly quiet today. I wonder if you were even there for a while. You're muted.
No, I've been here. I've been watching along and listening, and yes, sorry for not being too quiet.
No, it's a good move.
Okay then.
Okay, it's on the floor. Kim, are you going to speak to the Sarnia?
Yes, very quickly, Mr. Chair. Thank you. The Sarnia correspondence to the province that was sent to all Ontario municipalities is essentially opposed to the creation of a commission looking into long-term care. It takes kind of a blanket, a negative tone, and in some ways fails to acknowledge that there's been some really great work done in a lot of homes across the province, as well as some really unfortunate situations as well. It takes a swipe at some of the private sector providers, et cetera, and the blanket statement that that the province should increase hours for all part-time and casual labor without suggesting how that might be achieved is a bit of I think a big ask. So my advice to the committee would just be to receive this for information, as the resolution notes, in discussions with Jennifer and Advantage, and that I think what we see is that there's real merit in looking into the situation and trying to really understand what the root cause is of the situations that we saw, so that the corrections and adjustments that are made are ones that are really going to address the root cause of those problems and, you know, move us into the future in a much more sustainable manner. So
I agree. If the committee agrees with that, then we'll accept it only as correspondence. Note and file. All in favor of the motion? Is carried. So we're done with the correspondence. We're down to our agenda redevelopment update. Kim, do you have any updates?
well, I can tell that everyone really enjoyed the presentation today. And so that was really the key part of our redevelopment deliberations that we were anxious for you all to see. And I'm glad that that day finally came. It's been a long time getting to here. For those of you that are interested, on the Simcoe County website, the Simcoe Manor redevelopment does have its own page. And all of the project work, the staff reports, the design, the business case, etc., are all available publicly as well as their pressers. So I think there's some great work there for us to assess and to learn from. We've continued internally to refine the overall vision for the site. As we get closer to taking possession of that property, and we will, I think, be in a good place to potentially bring that to West Grey Council for their initial look as soon as we get the property completely, that purchase and sale completely wrapped up. We did get correspondence from the province last week indicating, remember I said on our last meeting that one of the next things the province needed to do was to provide the license to us for the 128 beds, and that there was some consultation that needed to happen for that. So we've heard that they've started on that consultation. Basically what they're doing is they're putting signage up in the long-term care home, and there's a web page for long-term care redevelopment projects. So it'll be the projects being posted there should anybody be watching those and want to make a comment that way. We asked the question of the province whether or not it was appropriate for Grey County to do any media on the fact that this consultation was open just now, and I'm still waiting to hear back on what the response to that was. But either way, I think it's very positive that you know, they didn't want to have a public meeting or anything like that. They just thought they'd put it open for comments. So things are moving forward there. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you, Kim. Christine, I see you had wanted to ask a question on employee receiving subsidy pay. And Kevin, I believe you're on the line to answer that question. Sorry.
Yes, as best I can. Sandra Shipley, who's our HR manager, has been on holidays last week. She's the best to give us the time frame to actually what it's going to calculate the number of hours and to generate that separate pay. So she's back tomorrow, and so we have a meeting planned tomorrow. So once I have a definite schedule when that will be paid, I can share that with the long-term care community management as well as the staff and the union representation. But I don't want to put a date with not understanding all the hoops and hurdles that the payroll is going to have to jump to do this. So if you can just give me a day or two, I can respond.
Mr. Chair, I'm not hearing the audio on this response.
Hey, I can hear, but
I could.
I'll try again then.
Thank you.
Okay. Sandra Shipley, who's our HR manager, has been on holidays last week. She'd be the best to answer this question. So I have a meeting planned with her tomorrow. And so she'll know what it's going to take in manpower to generate the hours worked, the eligibility, and then what it will be to generate that separate pay. As soon as I have a date established, I could share that with the long-term care community management, as well as staff, and as well as the union representation, and tell you exactly when that's going to occur. But I'd really be guessing if I tried to put a date on it today. So.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And through you, Mr. Chair, I have been receiving text and phone calls on the inquiry, recognizing that long-term care staff have been inquiring through Grey County, but I just wanted more of a drill down response for this. So thank you very much. I appreciate all that you're doing on this. And I do have a question on the redevelopment at the appropriate time, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Christine.
Okay, thank you. Kim, I was just wondering if you could provide us more detail in terms of what you would be looking for from West Grey Council.
Part of the planning work that needs to happen with the property once we own it is there's a hold on that hold designation on that piece of property. So in order to lift the H off of that and to be able to move forward, the commitment that the county made was that we would provide a vision, a high-level overview of the concepts for the property and to the satisfaction of West Grey so that they could see their way clear from a planning perspective to lift that H.
Okay.
Is there any other questions on
Thank you.
On the redevelopment? Scott, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I guess, Kim, a question to you. What do you need from the committee or from county council? Is it a notice of motion? Like if we want to really, look at the campus of care model, we've tossed it around, but there's not really been any direction or discussion at county council to, actually get more, to dive into that a little bit more. What do you need from us to be able to get to that point where, actual figures and concepts could be brought forward to county council other than just the redevelopment of long-term care?
Right. I think that's really what that overarching vision for the whole property sets us in the direction to do. By looking at, here's a piece of property that has a number of different aspects to it. And we talked in our last meeting about various housing options that could go along with the long-term care facility, as well as commercial and service commercial, as well as some other institutional uses like the paramedic base and that. So I think as we continue to develop that and maybe, put some numbers behind that, kind of loosely based on where SIMCOE's experience has taken them. I think that might give county council enough information and enough confidence about what the potential is to then direct us to, move forward in a much more substantive way with the, kind of appropriate external resources that we might need. I think not different than SIMCOE, we're going to need to have a full detailed design of the whole property in order to support the servicing. And you're going to want to see the business case. I think you're going to want to see how the numbers all come together if we go in that direction. So that's what I would be looking for, your county council's approval to proceed with procurement on those things once we had a start.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's important, to get a preliminary business case in front of county council because, looking at the numbers that SIMCOE was providing, their levy is a lot lower than ours. So they're obviously doing something right in this new campus of care, from a fiscal standpoint, but, just from the whole social standpoint, it's the right thing to do. It's amazing what they're doing over there, in my opinion. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Scott. If there's no other questions on redevelopment, our next meeting is set for September 8th. And if we have no other business, I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilor Woodbury, second by Councilor Mackey. All in favor? Yes, everybody's in favor. Again, thanks everybody for a great meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.